Here you go. We're going to install the BAKFlip F1 folding cover on a 2019 Honda Ridgeline. Alright, so essentially the first step requires a T50 Torx driver and a 7/16 wrench to remove the 4 upper tie-down hooks. Be sure to keep the 8 bolts, but do not reuse the tie-down hooks. So we'll go ahead and do that. Here's what one of them looks like. So we'll go ahead and start removing those. Alright, so we removed all the bolts and the tie-downs with the help of Mace. Now we're going to go ahead and align the rails, and they go together like this. It looks like you just reuse the screws and put it on in the form of basically top plate, bracket, rail bracket, then screws. So we'll go ahead and give this a shot and see how that goes. Here's how the rails came with all the hardware, and there's the side of the truck. We'll just go ahead and give it a go. Alright, so for part 2 it says to lay them out in this order. What's important to note, it says the notches have to be at the tailgate end, and then on this side the slotted holes are on the top, so that's how you tell which side these go onto. The back's pretty self-explanatory. Maybe I can show you here. You have this, and as you can see, this bracket's going to go up in a fashion to where the side that protrudes is against the tailgate end. So that's the only sort of complicated part of this. So I've got them all laid out. We're ready for the next step. Okay, so the next step says we're going to slide 2 of the rail brackets into each rail. Essentially, this is going to be the front and the back, and they'll slide into this thing real easy. They just go right in there. So we'll go ahead and do that, and then get on to the next step. Okay, so now I slid these things on each rail, and you can sort of see how this is going to start to work. This weather strip here is going to sit on the top of the rail. So once it's installed, it's just going to sit up on the rail like that. So that weather stripping will help prevent water getting down in there. I was pretty happy with how this was engineered. So far, so good. Alright, this next step is to, with the rail bracket slid into the rails, assemble the brackets as shown and loosely tighten the screws. Basically we're putting the hardware together, and you can sort of see here's what it's going to look like, where you have this first piece of metal is the piece we slid in, then your actual bracket, and then the piece on the end. And this piece is mainly just to anchor this and then protect your bed from getting scratched up by these screws. So we'll go ahead and put all those on, then we're going to be ready to start screwing this thing in. Okay, so we've got the hardware all screwed together on each side, and you can see how that rail hardware goes together. This is the plate that slides into the rail. Then you have the actual bracket, and then behind that you have the protective slash securing plate. That goes right on the rail, and then this still slides up and down the rail so you can align the holes. My guess is the next step is going to be actually putting the screws back in here and torquing this down a little bit. I would say it's important don't torque it down too much. That way, in case you ever have to take it off, you can still remove the bolts, or even better, put some anti-seize on them. I don't have any, so I'm just not going to screw them down too hard. Alright, so here, next step, step 5, we got all our hardware together here. It says it's important that when you're screwing this back into the truck, position the rail so the front cap pad firmly contacts the bulkhead. Align the brackets so they line up with the factory tie-down hook bolt holes. So we know about that, but it seems important that we push hard on this front part here to help prevent water coming through. So then same for the back. It says push down on the rail while you're tightening it so you can make a good contact, and then continue to push down on the rail while tightening. And all that just happened was I had this laying up there and it fell down. So we're just going to put this on. Put the front on first, and basically it's saying it wants this weather strip here pressed up tight against this. So we'll make sure that happens. Alright, so we're on this step 6, and it's basically just screwing in the Honda bolts that hold on the rails. The driver's side went on really good. You got to press down while you put it on and make sure these seals are good. However, when we look at the passenger side, the front went on really well. Push it up, you can see it's secure. We'll get to the back side though, and it was really difficult. Essentially, you can see this top screw sinks in. This bottom one will not. I've thought, hey, maybe it's the screw, so I've taken screws from other parts of the truck. I thought maybe it's the hole, but when I take the bracket away, both screws go in the hole completely. What I notice is, as this tightens, I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it almost seems like this piece from BAKFlip was machined maybe 1 millimeter off, and the screw is hitting on this side. And since the bracket's already up against the truck, there's nowhere for it to give, so the screw can't go in. Top screw's in, bottom screws just in a little bit. The funny thing is I didn't even have any problems on this side of the truck. It was just all, you know, right here. So I think I'm good enough to continue with the install, but I am going to email BAKFlip to see if I can get maybe a insight on if other people are having this problem or what the correction is here. So we'll go ahead and continue with the install. Alright, so I opened the next piece out of the box here, and it looks like we got a drain tube, some securing bolts, weather stripping, then some clamps, and also we had some of these end caps. And basically the instructions out of this piece says, first install the universal rails, which we just did, and then it says insert the rail end corners. There's no back, so went ahead and put the rail end corners on. They just slide right in. That was pretty simple. Alright, so as I continue to unpack this thing, I get an additional set of instructions. It says important read first. It's talking about shimming, spacing and shimming. I read this and then I looked through everything again and again and again and saw no shims. I re-looked through the box. I'm meticulous when I unpack things. Found no shims. And then on the back it says, hey, for the Honda Ridgeline, does my cover need shims? No and no. However, I'm sort of concerned with the quality assurance here. BAKFlip is sending out, hey, 05 to 15 Ridgelines don't need it. But this is a 2019 Ridgeline, so since it didn't come with any shims, I'm going to assume I don't need them. It does look like, you know, if your bed is angled, you really need the shims. However, it goes on to say here, it's good to have spacer shims. If your BAKFlip came with spacer shims in the kit, you may need them. I'm assuming since mine didn't come or they were forgotten that I don't need them. So, we'll continue on. Alright, another piece of paper here about warranty. Be sure to register at bakindustries.com. Already planning on contacting them because of the issue here where the bolt won't go in. It's because the holes are incorrectly spaced on the bracket, maybe off by like 1 millimeter, but still that's enough to not allow me to sink that bolt. So be sure to keep on to this here. Okay, step number 1 of this new instruction says if the truck does not have a drop-in bed liner, we do have a bed liner. All Ridgelines come with one. Install the cab bulkhead seal weather strip. So that's this here. I may go ahead and put it on just so that you know, we can try to keep our waterproofing as much as we can, but if it becomes an issue, I'm just going to rip it off. But we'll go ahead and put that on. Okay, so we put that weather seal on. I'm not sure if I'll need it or not, but you know what? If it helps keep water out of the back, that's what we ought to do. And it's sort of hard to see, but it's right there. I wasn't sure to put it on the top or on the front here. I could have made a mistake, but if you look at the instructions, sure as heck looks like that's going along the top. Just You know, the instructions have been pretty good so far. Here they're getting a little weak. It's hard to tell. So the next step says close the tailgate, which I did, and then place the rail with the bracket all the way forward. Here's that spacing and shimming. We looked at that and it said Honda Ridgelines don't need them. Then we're going to go ahead and make sure the rail is clamped square as shown. Start at the front and place the first clamp approximately 6 to 9 inches back. Make sure the clamp is inserted all the way up into the rail and the clamp teeth are aligned to the rail slots to ensure a secure grip. So again, the instructions are a little weak, but assuming we're going to put this on, right, with the silver piece headed up front, we're going to have to clamp it onto the universal rails we already put on. This doesn't say that, so if you opened up these instructions first, you may not know to put those universal rails on. Anyway, just a little confusion here, but I'm going to go ahead and start putting some of these clamps on and see how it goes. Okay, so as you turn over the instructions, it talks about applying downward pressure with the BAK BAKFlip rail to ensure the rail sets flush and seals properly. A second set of hands may help. I was only born with 2 hands, and I'm sure at the 4-wheel stores, the 18-year-old who installs these for people only has 2 as well. But I did, you know, try to hold down on the rail as I secured it. Just place the second clamp near the center, and then place the rear clamp 6 inches from the tailgate, tighten them until snug, and then torque them. I don't have a torque wrench, but I didn't do it too much because I want to be able to take them off. But I did want to show you how I place them. You know, I place them back and then middle near the rod here that will connect the backflip. I assume this may be an area of stress we want to secure. And then up front as well. I tried to push down the best I could while I was installing them, and I found it easier to push down, hand tighten, and then go ahead and use your 9/16 wrench here to tighten everything up. So I did that on both sides. Now it says set the cover in the folded position of the backflip rails towards the front of the cab with the small panel forward. So we'll do that, and then it says, you know, you want to go ahead and hand tighten these buckle ends. So we have a couple buckle ends in one of those packages there. We'll go ahead and hand tighten those up and go from there. So I just wanted to stop here and let you know some frustration I had here with step 10. You can see this cover mount here. They want you to hand tie it on, screw it on. But as you can see, the female section comes up from underneath. The male screw goes through the top, so you hold your finger on the bottom and screw through the top. However, the screw holes that were pre-manufactured there, the holes that go through the actual cover itself, were very poorly machined, and there were many shavings in each of these holes. So I had to take time to go ahead and what I did was I took these female pieces and pressed them through the hole many times, from the bottom, then from the top, from the bottom, then from the top, to push all those shavings out of there. If I wouldn't have done that, these screws would have never went in. So again, you know, here's something for when you spend what I spent on this cover. You would expect that they took a wire brush and cleared out all those shavings. Obviously that didn't happen, so you have to do that yourself. Otherwise, I don't know how you would get these on without just gluing them on, I guess. So just be aware of that. So we're going to go ahead and go to the next step. It says small panel faces forward towards the cab and folds down over the silver brackets. The front panel must sit just inside the bulkhead rail with the seal resting on the top of the rail. Fold the panel down and align it so it is setting squarely on the rails, and align the mounting holes with the silver slotted brackets on the rails. Then it's going to want us to install some bumpers. And these are the ones that are going to go press up against the cab. And then finally, I want you to put these large twist screws down through the cab to secure it. And that's going to go down through those silver holes there. And you can still see I got this weather stripping up on top. and it's going to sit underneath of this rubber seal that they've placed here. I don't know if that's the right place for it or not. I think I'll go ahead and install it that way and see how I like it. If I don't like it, I can always take that off. But the main thing is I don't want water getting down into this bed. So maybe that'll help this seal better. Not really sure. That might be something that we need to consult BAKFlip for, because again, step one sure looks like they're putting that weather strip along the top. Sure looks that way. So, alright, so we'll go ahead and go up to step 13. Okay, so we went ahead and put those 2 screws down and then put the protective bumpers on. And what I did was I actually folded the BAKFlip up to see where it would hit the ridgeline, and that's where I installed the protective bumpers. The next step is to, on 14 and 15, is to construct these properly, and basically from the top down, you know, we already put the top ones in. This is a black screw with a black silicone washer. Coming up from the bottom, we have the twist knob, the lock nut, the silver washer, and then another black silicone washer. So we'll go ahead and put those on. It says to put them on loosely, and the reason is afterwards we're going to unfold this thing and see how it fits and then adjust accordingly. It says the cover's aluminum frame should fit just inside the tailgate when it's made correctly. So I'll go ahead and put this on sort of loose and see how it fits, and then play with it until I get the correct fit. Finally, after you get the correct fit, you tighten up, and then it looks like 20. There's some drain tube situation going on here. We'll hold off on 20 till the next step. Basically, we're going to try to get this to fit right. Just wanted to show you here what I had to do. So you can see I folded this up all the way so you just have the small piece. And you can see here's the weather stripping the front of my bed, and I pushed that metal up as close as I can. But since I only have 2 hands, in order to put the black washer, the silver washer, the lock nut, and this on to a screw where I need to apply downward pressure from above, I just pulled this up and I used my left hand to push down on the top and then screw from the bottom, and it's sort of loose, so hopefully I'll be able to adjust this bed as I need. I'm going to go ahead and do this to the other side as well. Alright, the final install here is these drain lines coming down, and they're made for a drain hole. The 2019 Ridgeline doesn't have drain holes. It's got 10 small drain holes along the perimeter of the bed, and you can see them. So what I did was I'm just going to run these lines down and around like that. So that way if there is water coming down, it'll go right out of the bed. I really don't want to go drilling my bed. Maybe I'll wait and see what some other folks are doing, but you can see the holes here. So this should be just fine for getting any of the water that comes off the rails out. So as you know, as you play with the screws here that actually lock the topper down, you'll have to unfold, put up your bed, and then refold to make sure everything lines up really well. It took me a couple times doing that, and I'm still having some issues with the actual topper itself sticking a little on the back rear of the bed here, and I think that may have something to do with the issues with this incorrectly CNC'd piece from BAKFlip, this mount. If you remember, I wasn't able to get this screwed in perfectly. So what I've done is I've tightened these down really well, and I've moved one clamp back and this one even a little closer to the back, and I may even move it back a little more just to try to, you know, pull this in a little more. It is sticking, I'd say, my goodness, by a centimeter maybe. So all in all, though, I think the install's about finished. What's left to do is just contact BAKFlip about getting a proper bracket here, and then that'll be all. So I'll take some final pictures of what the Ridgeline looks like with this But as you can see, the instructions don't say it very well, but when you flip this up, basically you can take this off and it'll go right into here, and then you tighten it down. This way when you're going down the interstate, you don't have to worry about this back flapping around. So, alright, thanks. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments.